So, I would like to welcome you to this conversation between JoAnne and me. We're going to be looking at a couple of intersecting things. We both of us, in different ways, connect with very ancient structures of wisdom and knowledge. We both of us, in different ways, connect with performance technique. And we both of us are very aware of the importance of presence, both in work and in just the ability to live a fully functioning life. And that's what we're going to explore. But I use the word explore carefully because what this isn't a workshop. We haven't prepared a presentation. That you can get those on School of Humankind. Go to the library, you'll find workshops, presentations, talks, whatever. But what you'll also find are things like this. These are conversations. JoAnne and I have talked in the past, but we haven't planned this conversation. We are two people who come in from a position of knowledge of our field, knowing there's connection between those fields, and we're going to explore those connections. We're going to just see where it goes. We're going to keep our eye on those three things of ancient wisdoms, performance techniques, and presence, but who knows what will unfold? We're on a journey. Let's start. I'm just going to pass it to you, JoAnne, and say, where are you starting from?
I love that. Well, thank you, John. And I am grateful to be here today discussing all of these things and most importantly, presence. So I couldn't be more excited to be present with you and our audience. And I just want to take a moment to connect to your presence and for those listening to just connect to their presence in this very moment with their breath. So if you want to take a deep breath, together we can breathe just deep through your nose, out through the back of your throat. And over the course of my learning and exploration, and I will claim that I am not an expert in this at all, I'm continually learning, that is the simplest way to come back to presence, really, is to take a deep breath. And I come at this conversation today from my background in yoga and Ayurveda training. I've been in health and wellness for the past 2 decades. And throughout that journey, I had been fortunate to study in India and under some great yoga teachers and Ayurvedic doctors. And through that, I really learned what presence is. And that could come through meditation or through breath work or through just the simple process of opening your eyes in the morning and realizing I'm alive. So that's where I'm coming at this from. And I guess I'd say that we often hurry through the day, especially now in our modern times with all of our inputs and communications through the platforms and how fast our world is moving, that we often are ahead of ourselves and sometimes spinning, out of our bodies and into the future when we really just need to come back because the moment we're here is the only moment that we're guaranteed, and that is the present moment. Mm-hmm. And I want to say that, John, I connected with you, John, in a way that was super cool because I saw all of your posts and insights on improv and presence. And I too have come from some training in improvisation. And so those two are so important because in order to improvise, you need to be present or your scene goes nowhere. So maybe you can add to that. Love to hear your insight on just your background and then your improv background too, your improvisation background.
Okay, so you see, I come from a very different place. And while you talk of, your work was always, as you access yoga and Ayurveda and so on, your work was always in a strong lineage, which went back millennia. My work was as an actor. I didn't, I was aware that there was a history of acting, although back 30 years ago, I thought it started with Stanislavski 120 years ago. But my interest was practical. How do you deliver a show? How do you hold attention? As well as starting as an actor, I began to work in pretty tough communities in inner cities in England at a time when racists were out on the streets and we were working in a multicultural environment. We were trying to deal with, all the really big stuff. My job was deliver now, help people be empowered now. It's not theoretical, it's absolutely practical. Now, over the decades, as I taught and performed and directed, I began to realize actually that I was working within an ancient lineage. That Stanislavski 120 years ago might be important, but this lineage of what actors know goes back to before written history. The earliest humans would have bonded into community through the telling of story. That might be through words, it might be through music, it might be through dance, but the actor's tradition or the performer's tradition is as ancient as humanity. So I came to an understanding of history and lineage really quite a way into my career. So a lot of my work was about quite technical questions. So there's no point in saying to an actor, be present, if you can't explain what that means and how they do it. Because they go, I am present. And you go, no, you're not. And then you just have a shouting match. If you're in a classroom and you want someone to do something, you have to be able to help them understand what you want them to do and how to do it. Even if you can't give them definitive answers, when somebody says, what do you mean by being present? I can't go, well, I don't know. And I can't go connect with now because they go, what does that mean? I need precise definitions. And over the decades, I developed precise strategies to enable people to be present. So my connection with the ancient lineage emerges from a very practical research into basically how one person connects to another.
Right.
Now, you talk about improvisation as a place of presence. Absolutely. I mean, improvisation is about responding to the now. And I used to teach improvisation, not comedy improvisation. I used to teach movement improvisation. But I also came to go that improvisation is the purest form of performance, but all performance is improvisation, all performance. In fact, at the risk of sounding unduly big in my thinking, life is improvisation. I wasn't given a script this morning. Nobody got up this morning and said, okay, you're going to say this, and then you'll take 2 steps to the left. There's no director. What you say now changes what I say. How you say it changes how I respond. The sound of, the wind outside on this stormy autumnal Irish summer's day, it changes. We are changed by everything. And if we are to live in authentic alignment with ourselves and with our world, we are improvising, and that requires us to be present now. Doesn't mean we don't have a plan. Doesn't mean we don't have intentions. When you're improvising, you know where you're going, but you're also willing to go, oh, okay, I'm not going there. I'm going over there instead.
Yes.
Flexibility and adaptability. They're heart of what improvisation is, and improvisation is the heart of what performance is. And I say performance is the heart of what life is.
Yes. That's beautiful. I love it. Can you say it again? Say it again so we get it. That 3 parts. Well,
presence is the heart of improvisation.
Mm-hmm.
Improvisation is the heart of performance. Mm-hmm. Performance is the heart of living.
Yeah.
And it's no accident, because where do we live? We live in the here and now. So we can make it one step further. Presence is the heart of improvisation. Improvisation is the heart of performance. Performance is the heart of living, and living happens in presence. It's a circle.
It is a circle.
They're all different words for the same thing.
Yeah.
Being connected inwardly and outwardly to now.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And what I wanted to bring up, which is kind of bubbling up, and I'm reacting to this. I love that we are having this conversation without, a PowerPoint or
Absolutely, yeah.
anything. And John and I had spoke before on the same topic together, and it will come out different, but just as beautiful because it's here and now. But I want to bring up that you're directing people or instructing people on how to be present, and obviously, like you said, you can't just shout at someone, you have to be present. But I want to bring up, which I thought was just brilliant, your exercise that you had said you had taught all over the world, and specifically when you were in Asia, that you had taught this technique with not a physical, oh yes, with a physical ball. So can you touch on that? Because I really want the audience to visualize this activity and how important it is, because I had brought up that I had done the same activity when I was training in improv with an imaginary ball. And it was the activity where I was to throw this energetic imaginary ball to a partner, and that partner had to be present and acting like it was catching that imaginary ball. And you had said, aha, but this gets really tricky when you actually bring in a physical ball. And how that you have to be in complete presence in order to do this activity.
Okay, so it's I'd stress that the exercise you talk about of imagining a ball flying is a great exercise. It requires enormous amount of skill to be able actually to respond to something that isn't there as if it is there. So it's a great exercise. What I do, the ball game that I really spent 25 to 30 years researching, is different because it is entirely real and entirely practical. It's because actually deep down, although I sort of talk a lot of theory, deep down I'm actually very practical. We learn by doing stuff. Actors learn by doing things. All the theory in the world doesn't make you a good actor. Acting well makes you a good actor. It's practice. So my version of the ball game, which is, there are actually many ways you can do it, but the most basic version of the ball game sounds like the simplest exercise in the world, which is, in some ways it is. You stand in a circle with however many people are there, and you have a ball. I use a 120-gram latex covered juggling ball because it doesn't bounce, and it's hard enough that it doesn't just catch between your fingers. You've actually got to close your fingers over it, and if it hits you in the face, it will hurt. Not badly, it won't damage you, but it's real. If it was something fluffy like a rolled up piece of foam, there would be no reason particularly to try to catch it. You stand in the circle and the ball is thrown from person to person. No fixed pattern, it just is passed. And then gradually you introduce a second ball and a third ball and a fourth ball and a fifth ball. And it sounds super simple. It is. But let's just think for a moment about what is actually happening in that exercise. The ball is dead. It has no opinion. It doesn't have any energy or volition of its own. It only does exactly what it is asked to do. If I throw it high, it will go high. If I throw it short, it will fall short. The ball doesn't lie. The ball contains an absolute reflection of the instructions that it's being given. So the first start in the ball game is that if I watch how I throw the ball, I am seeing what I'm doing with my body. It's really simple. Not what I think I'm doing with my body. I'll see what I'm doing with my body. That's useful, of course. What I do with my body is a consequence of what I'm doing with my thoughts. So if I really learn to watch the ball, I see how I'm thinking, my unconscious thinking. I see that I'm really nice, so I always throw the ball short because I don't want to hurt someone. And you realize that I'm actually trying to be helpful and making life hell for everyone else because they constantly have to bend forward to catch. I'm not doing my job. I'm actually trying to be so nice that I'm getting in everybody else's way. I can see that by watching the ball. But the ball's much more important than that, because when the ball comes to me thrown by someone else, my job is to catch it to take their energy and to pass it on to someone else. Not think about it, not think I'm going to throw it to. It comes and it goes.
Mhm.
As I watch how I respond to the ball, I see how I respond to somebody giving me a moment of communication.
Mhm.
It's really transparent. A ball comes to me, and my shoulders tense, and I go, wow, I'm defending myself against this communication.
Yeah.
Or a ball comes too fast, and I go, why did you do that? I'm blaming someone else for the fact that I was unprepared.
Yeah. Mhm.
Two balls come at once, and I do terrible throws, and I say, wow, I'm passing my panic on to someone else. We see repeatedly not only our patterns of thinking, but in the ball game, we have a practical way of exploring how to think differently. What happens if I choose not to tense my shoulders?
Mhm.
What happens if when two balls come at once, I know I'm about to panic and I smile and I send one and then the other? The heart of it, of course, is presence.
Yes.
I must be there responding exactly to what is being asked of me through the balls that are being thrown to me. And by the
Mhm.
time there's one ball going, there's a lot of empty space. So I have to discipline my mind in that way. By the time there's 12 balls going, I have to be working efficiently and safely at an immensely fast level of reactivity. All of these are improvisation skills, performance skills, and life skills.
Exactly. And so simplistic, like you said, the game is really simple. But I don't
But
know that
simple,
any.
but simple, JoAnne. You started it. You
Yeah.
started with breathing. Doesn't
Yeah.
get any simpler than that.
Right.
Presence is the fundamental simplicity, isn't it?
Yeah. It is exactly. And this leads me to where I'm taking in what you're saying. I'm really here with you, and I want to bring it to that level of where I'm integrating your information and I'm present with you. But yet, we have so many people that constantly are thinking about what they want to say next. And i
Mhm.
i am humble in saying that I can be that person that,
Me too.
obviously it's common to have the part of the brain saying, oh yeah, yeah, I want to do that, I want to say that, I want to go there. And the greatest and beautiful, most beautiful outcomes sometimes are when we actually don't even know what's going to come next,
Mhm.
like where it's going to go. And when there's a pause, when we pause, and the pause might be really uncomfortable for the fast
Mhm.
paced society, because I find that there's so much going on, and that if somebody's having a conversation, if someone takes too long to say something, they fill in the blank
Mhm.
or they start to stimulate more conversation. So I wanted to bring up that while you're talking, I'm here and I'm with you and I'm following along in my mind, and it's beautiful. And then I'm thinking of how that ties into maybe the next thing that's going to happen. And I love
Mhm.
when you brought up how you have this little voice that says, go here, go
Yeah.
there. And you described it to me, and maybe you can elaborate again on that little voice of the subconscious director, is it, in the conscious mind, where you're doing improv or you're doing life, and we have this presence, but yet we do always have a director sort of in the background.
Yeah, it's really complicated, isn't it? Because we move inevitably to talking about the structure of consciousness and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, so most of our actions emerge from unconscious rather than conscious thinking. Most of our physical actions, most of our life choices, whatever, they emerge from unconscious thinking, not conscious thinking. One of the things that I think is common to all ancient wisdoms, whether that's yoga or qigong or a performance tradition, is it encourages us to observe the choices we make when we don't know we're making choices. It encourages us to observe the thoughts which come in when thoughts are not necessary. So I mean, and we
Mhm.
can, there's a word for it. It's mindfulness. They encourage
Yeah.
mindfulness.
Yes.
Um,
Mindfulness.
so I have a regular qigong practice, with the traditional Chinese form, and it's a daily encounter with myself.
Hmm.
Very simple. Now, if, as is true, the majority of our actions come and choices come from our unconscious, a couple of things emerge from that. One, we must learn to trust our unconscious,
Hmm.
because otherwise we try to control everything. And if you try to control everything, your brain is going to melt, because you're not going to be able to do it. So we have to learn, excuse me, to trust our unconscious. But we also need to learn to evolve our unconscious so that we are not being driven by unconscious fears and by shame and by all of these things, but we are aligning our unconscious choices
Hmm.
with who we want to be and how we want to operate. And,
Hmm.
I've done yoga a little bit. I'm not, much for yogi, certainly in Qigong, certainly in performance practice and in improvisation. I see myself going down tracks, led off by my cheerfully rebellious unconscious, taking me off tracks. And I say, no, I don't want to go down that track. I hear you, I know that you're doing something useful there. You're trying to do something
Hmm.
interesting, but no, that's not where I want to go. And the analogy I use for that, which is one that emerges from Buddhism, uh, is that the body mind, I think of it as a rider on a horse riding
Hmm.
down a steep mountain on the way to get to home at dusk. The rider, which is the conscious mind, the
Hmm.
rider is really stupid if the rider says to the horse, put your foot on there, put your foot there, put your foot there. The horse knows better than the rider how to get down the mountain. But the horse needs the rider sometimes to say, no, actually, we'll go right here, not left, because there's been a landslip and that path's blocked. Or
Hmm.
needs the rider to say, I know you're in a hurry to get home, but it's a long way. So we're actually going to stop for half an hour for you to get something to drink and something to eat before. In other words, the conscious mind guides
Hmm.
and we train the unconscious mind to do.
Yes. And that is beautiful. That's a beautiful explanation because I'll tie that into the seer. When you're in meditation, it's teachers sometimes encourage you to be looking at yourself and you can sink into. I should just mention that if anybody who hasn't does not have a practice of qigong or meditation, it's just that focused attention, and you can focus your attention on a gaze or your breath or a mantra. So there's a number of different meditations, another number of different meditation techniques, but overall the main way to meditate is focused attention, right? And when we take ourselves out and we look down when we're quieting ourselves with our breath and in that focused way, we're doing exactly what you're saying, is like connecting the conscious with the unconscious and being able to see ourselves, and outside of just the analytical mind where we're
Mhm.
here, and that meditation quiets that analytical mind to a point where we're coming at it from more of a heart space. And the ultimate utopia is when we can connect both of the head and the heart together working harmoniously,
Mm.
where one isn't dominating the other, because we need both to function in the present moment.
Mm.
So that's my 2 cents to add on top of what you said about the conscious and unconscious.
But really, really important, I think, really important. There is a tendency, and I think it's a understandable but foolish tendency for people to be afraid of improvisation because they want to be in control. They're afraid of what will happen
Yes.
if they're out of control. There is an equally foolish tendency among some people to go, don't think it, just feel it and do it. And I go, why? We are born with the ability to conceptualize and to think and to plan, and we are born with the ability to be spontaneous. And surely And this is again at the heart of a performer's technique. Surely, to be fully functioning humans, we need to align every aspect of ourselves, quieten the overactive talking mind, and learn to guide and not always believe the choices that the unconscious mind will make you. There you are in a performance. I've done this. I've been an improviser for years. You're in a performance and the material is taking you somewhere, and your unconscious is going, oh, look, it's moving into, let's say, dark material or religious material or explicit material. And you look up and there's children on the front row,
Yeah.
and you go, no, I'm still improvising. I'm not betraying. I'm not being inauthentic. I'm just saying, no, that is one way we could go, but I'm not just going to feel it and do it. I'm going to say no. I was once asked to improvise in front of, it's a very complex and long story, which I won't go into, but in front of a combination of acting students and villagers in rural India. And the villagers were from a very conservative village, most of them not speaking English, very rural, middle of nowhere, many of them young women with their babies in their arms and so on. Big areas that I really couldn't go into. I really shouldn't touch into anything political, really into nothing to do with any kind of religious or spiritual thing. And I often did. I often used to go into those areas as a performer. Did I improvise? Hell yes, I improvised my socks off. But I didn't give free rein to my unconscious, because my conscious was saying there are certain things here that are more or less appropriate.
Mhm.
And that's how we live, isn't it? There's things I won't do in this conversation. There's language I won't use. I won't swear in this conversation. It's a public conversation. If I'm talking to my mate, I probably will. We deal with appropriateness,
Yeah.
and we can't know and sense what's appropriate unless we come into the present moment.
Right on. And why do you think at this point in time presence is so important, more important than ever before?
Because I think that the world profits from us being distracted.
Yeah, I
I mean,
agree.
I've got a very simple definition of presence.
Mhm.
Presence is where you are when you're not distracted.
Right?
It's simple as that. Presence isn't something you have to get to. Presence is our natural state. We are
Mhm.
naturally present, like all animals are. We are naturally present, but our mind distracts us, and the world has found a way to profit from our distraction. And it's
Mhm.
happening more and more. Our very ability to be present is being destroyed by people monetizing our distraction. Scroll through Facebook, buy this
Yeah.
thing, go shopping. Yeah,
Yeah.
I use Facebook and all of that stuff. I'm not knocking it,
Yeah.
but it is deeply unhealthy and deeply hostile to actual human contact,
Mhm.
constantly to be distracted. And we need more than anything right now, we need to re-establish connection with each other. We need to make connections across the barriers we put in place of politics and religion and
Right.
ethnicity and so on. We need to reconnect with the natural world. We need to start seeing other creatures as having dignity and a right to life. We need to see that forests are living life forms, not resources to be cut down.
Mhm.
We need to reconnect, and connection only happens in the present. I can't connect with you tomorrow. Tomorrow I might be able to, but I can't connect with who you are tomorrow, because tomorrow
Yeah.
doesn't exist.
Mhm. It's
So
right
I,
now.
for you, speaking of improv and Ayurveda and yoga, where's the connection there? What's the big sort of synthesis there for you in those things?
Well, all of those dots really came together, and it was a journey, but all of the dots came together, and it's really all it's all one. I see it as a ball.
Mm.
It's not even a triangle. It's just all kind of interwoven as a ball that I got really passionate about the process of eating, and I won't go down the rabbit hole because I know we're coming to the end, but I got really passionate about the process of eating when I did study Ayurveda, because I've always been in health and wellness, and I knew the importance of physically what you put in your mouth, and
Mm.
people would come to me for weight management, etc. But when I dove into the philosophy of Ayurveda and learned about the process of eating in the physical, but also mental, spiritual, and emotional, that's when I realized presence is very important as far as what we do to take life force into our body, and
Mm.
how in, and this again is another topic, but that whole presence part of connecting to the process of what we put in our mouth, I started seeing the light bulb. And this was, probably in the same time period that I was studying improv, because it was about 15, 16 years ago that I did all of these studies together. And that I realized that true digestion of anything we put for life force into our body is being present so that we can efficiently break down what we're taking in,
Mhm.
physical food, the mental surroundings, and that whole process is going in a circle to invigorate us, because it's life force taken in through physical and mental surroundings coming into our body to invigorate us with energy. And that we're ill as a worldwide society. We're becoming more and more ill because we are distracted when we eat. So
Mm.
the whole light bulb went off for me in the process of eating for presence,
Mm.
because how often are we popping crap into our mouth and we're not even present for our
Yeah.
food? And how often are we eating in the car, or just eating without even realizing we're eating? So
Mm.
that was where that intersection happened for me, and realizing the true importance of being present so that we can stay alive and continue to be healthy with how we feed ourselves. But how we feed ourselves isn't just physical food, it's the mental surrounding and the spiritual surrounding. And so that's why I'm so passionate about
Mm.
presence, because it affects us on so many levels.
Fantastic. And I know we're coming to an end, but there's so many
No,
doorways open up.
we could go.
But
I know
yeah,
there are
but
so
the
many
thing, the
doorways.
thing that really, makes me, that resonates with me is eating, of course, like breathing, like using the senses, which is another way I work a lot with presence, are the fundamental aspects of humanity. Scrolling on a phone isn't, whatever. The fundamental things are breathing and eating and so on, and being able to digest all of that
Mhm.
healthily and to connect with it as it's happening. These are the traits of what it is actually to be human.
Mhm.
The other stuff is other things humans can do, but what it is to be human, breathe,
Mhm.
eat,
Yeah.
connect with others because we are social beings,
Yeah.
be within a landscape, see what's there, evolutionarily go, look at this, a tiger, whatever, but also see beauty, be in
Mhm.
awe of the universe under the stars at night or whatever. These are the human things. And you ask, I love what you're saying about food. It's such a powerful, it's both real and symbolic, really importantly. But you say, why is presence so important now?
Mhm.
And partly in reaction to what you're saying, I would say, because it's never been more important to reclaim our humanity.
And if you're listening, I'm holding my heart if you're not watching, but it's so profound, and it's so simple but yet profound. It's so true. We're losing it. And I think we all know, as we've come together as a global initiative in the School of Humankind, that we realize that our connection and our viewpoints and the passion that we have for reclaiming that is so, it's, there's no word to put to it, but it's the highest of the highest importance
Mm.
for us to thrive.
I think we should wrap there because that's a lovely place to get to.
Yeah, I love it.
If you're listening or watching to this and you want to connect more with what JoAnne is offering, then you have things up in the courses pages of School of Humankind. People can find ways to connect with you. I've got various stuff available on the School of Humankind, including a book on presence, which I don't think is actually on the webpage. Actually, you can get that one from Amazon. But there's various stuff up there, and also from other faculties, some beautiful people doing beautiful things. Feel free to respond, send JoAnne a message, send me a message. Love to hear your responses to this. But for me, I say thank you, and over to you, JoAnne.
And John, I thank you. And I want to plug your book, which I did order a digital copy of, and I am into it. I love it. So I would say that it's easy to grab it from John's website, or even if you have a link on the School of Humankind. So I am so grateful for our time and our presence together today. And again, there's so many doors we could have opened and rabbit holes we could have fell into. But
We'll have to do it
there's
again soon.
there'll be more conversations. I think I want to leave, I should say, I know I want to leave the listeners with a takeaway, which would be if you can stop yourself for a moment each day and just connect. If you don't have a breathing practice or a breathwork practice, or like John had mentioned, qigong, and you don't have to be sitting on a cushion and being a yogi on a mountaintop to meditate, but if you could just stop yourself, start with once a day where you connect to the breath and you connect to all five senses, and just really take in that moment and see where that goes for you. That would be my recommendation or my takeaway from today. And John, I don't know if you have any tidbit for them to take away, but
I would
I'm complete.
I would echo that absolutely. One of the most powerful things we can do is be willing to stop, even
Yeah.
whether it's for half an hour or half a minute. And connecting with the world is the easiest thing in the world, easiest thing possible. Listen,
Yeah.
look, smell what's around you, taste your coffee, touch the desk you're sitting at, feel the breath go into you. Hear some bird song, look at the laughter in a child's eyes. It's the easiest thing in the world to reject distraction. The hard thing is to stay focused, but that's a discipline and that grows over time.
Yeah. And that is the truth. And you mentioned that we are so connected and it's so easy for us to connect, but often we forget to connect with ourselves.
I'm going to stop the recording.
Thank you.
Thank you all.